Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. This is NFL Week 18. I don't know what year it is. You can see it on the like it's the 2023 season, but it's technically 2024. So I don't know. It's Week 18 of the season we're in. If you're watching this a full year from now, the games won't make sense. So you'll figure that out quickly. Otherwise, though, we are wrapping up the season. Jake, to let the people know here, we're going to give out 3 picks on the free show, extended cut like we're doing with college basketball. If you want that, get with us on Dub Club. These are our 8 best bets. It's kind of what we've been doing, been giving a lot out here for free as well, but we're going to hold back those 5. And we're going to talk about every single game. We might not talk a lot, but we're going to mention what's going on, incentives, things of that nature. It's just those are the games that we have picks on. Some of the games we're looking at going, I don't know, like, here's what we have, here's what we know, but I don't really like anything, and here's why. And we'll kind of tell you why we don't like anything and what we're looking for, things like that. So we're going to cover every single game this week. It'll probably be about an hour-long show. So if you like content, Dub Club is the place to be to get that. And again, that sign-up link in the show description. We'll have a link for you later. But, Jake, here's the recap from Week 17. Week 17 did not go well, and yet look at all the green that we have, and that's kind of the bottom line. We always talk about every week can't be perfect. We won't win every week. I believe it was the 4th week that A-grade sides were in the negative, and yet there's still a 24% ROI on the season and a sample size now of 81. The sides, best bets are 10%. The totals are 16. And the picks on show here are a mere 6%. If you've been freeloading here, you're only at a 6% ROI on the NFL season. But again, if we've helped make you money, we would love if you join us over on Dub Club. Here is the link to get there and to get your first month for under $1 per day. And again, the sign-up link in the show description. Jake, we didn't do well last week. Cousin Jared came on. It wasn't him. It wasn't his fault. I did tell the Discord chat, though, I kind of tried to talk him in to both Green Bay on Sunday and laying the points with the Browns on Thursday. And he wasn't going for either one of them. And I said, was the fault on me or him? Because maybe I just didn't make a convincing enough argument, right? And that could have been on me. So I was kind of like, I kind of like that, And I kind of like the Patriots too. And I did tell everybody. So everybody was aware of that I was playing, even though it wasn't an official pick. So it didn't look good last week, but I think it was better than that because of things like that, where we were kind of talking about those games and how to play that. And, we at least talked in the Discord about going over in that last game, and it went over too. So there were some snuck in winners there. But I think him and I on the NFL, we just haven't had our cadence right. We haven't been working together all year on this. But you and I have that down. So I'm expecting a bounce back week here. No pressure on you making your return to the NFL show, Jake.
Yeah, hey, I'm gonna do what I can. I'm gonna try to pick up some of the slack here and get us back to adding to those green numbers instead of subtracting from them.
Yes, that is what we like to do. 3 picks for free that we're going to start off with: Houston and Indianapolis. First off, the caveat for this whole show is I have done my best to figure out who's playing and who's not, and that's reflected in the rankings. So the Texans having the number 4 defense is not that they have the 4th best defense. It's that like 4 of the defenses ahead of them, I'm not sure going to be at 100%. Now, this Texans defense we've talked about, I do think is still pretty decent. I think it's undervalued. The other thing, and you can kind of see it there on the screen with regards to the pace. I remember a few weeks ago we had the Browns on and we talked in the model had them like number 20 or something. And there was a key injury that made it that low. I think the next week they bounced back and they were like number 10. And some people might look and they might say, how in the world do you have the Browns at like the 10th best defense? That's the number 1 defense in football. And I would say, well, the Browns have run the most plays in football and they've had the fewest plays run against them. So you don't allow as many points when you're not allowing a lot of plays against you. And you might say, well, that's part of how good they are. Well, it's partially the ball control. They've done a great job on offense of ball control. And so the grades on the screen, number 1, they're a reflection of a per play basis. And that's kind of the thing with the Texans is they give up more points than their grade would be because they are an above average team on pace. They do play a little bit quicker, have a few more plays per game than the average team. And then again, the caveat for this week is all of this is, I think Baltimore, I've got like number 32 right now because I'm assuming literally not a single starter for their plays. And so that's kind of the only reason you can get to the Pittsburgh being favored in that game here in front of this one. So that's just kind of the things to keep in mind for this game. I think it's priced pretty well too. Both teams obviously want to win. It's a winner gets in. Depending on what happens with the Jaguars, it might be a division title. It might just be a wild card. We won't really know that until the next day. But this should be a really interesting contest. Two teams that play above average. But the Colts have been playing surprisingly lower scoring games here these last several weeks. You combine that with the Texans, who I think are underrated on defense. We're going to go under 47.5. So I don't think it's 44, 47, 48 your key number. So 48's even better if you can get that. But even if you can't, we think that 41, 44, 47 are the three most likely outcomes of this game, and all three of those are winners. Jake, tell us more.
Yeah, look, Indy at home, they'll be a little bit better, but I think Houston's going to try to keep the ball the whole time, and Indy's defense isn't that great. I mean, and their offense has been a little more geared toward handing the ball to Taylor, who's probably their best player. I mean, you could argue Pittman, but the
problem with arguing Pittman's the best player is you have to have someone get him the ball, and Minshew's you never know what you're going to get on every single drop back with him. At least Taylor, you feel pretty confident you can get him the ball.
Yeah, so that's where I think the lower scoring kind of is coming from. They're more leaning on Taylor, running the ball more, and I think both teams are going to be doing that because, I mean, the Texans' receiving corps has been almost decimated here. And then is Stroud going? Do we have Stroud going? Or yeah, so that makes a big difference. But I still don't think either of these teams are going to put up a crazy amount of points. I mean, the Texans really haven't scored that well. I mean, I don't know if putting 26 on the Titans really counts as scoring that well, but even before that, it wasn't doing. Their offense wasn't clicking that well. Even with when Stroud was going, then I mean, like I said, I think Indianapolis is going to try to run the ball the whole time. So I don't see a lot of points happening here.
The key thing here that we haven't even talked about, really, I mean, we kind of dabbled on it, but this is a playoff game, right? I mean, when the winner goes on and the loser doesn't, it's a playoff game. And that's why it's one of the standalone games here. Playoff games tend to have slightly fewer points than expected on average. Not always. There are times when that's not true, where the team wants to go faster and they think they can make the team uncomfortable and that sort of thing. But this is a game that, with everything on the line, you kind of expect a little bit more measured, pace, a little bit less frenetic. And that's the thing, is that the reason this total has to be so high is because the Colts have been just a high possession, or it should be high play per game team, both for and against. They just have a lot of plays in the game. They go fast. And when you have a bunch of plays in the game, you have more points, right? It's that simple. But I'm just not sure that's going to hold. And we talked about these last few weeks. The Colts have been kind of hanging around the low 40s, 30s and low 40s for their totals. And I just don't see any reason why these teams aren't going to, take every second on the play clock, try to control the ball, try to keep their defense off the field, make everything perfect, that sort of thing. Yep. And given the way the Colts have been kind of doing that anyway with all the running, it's been a completely different team these last few weeks. And it kind of took me by surprise because the model said go under on this one. And I was like, really? Like, that's the Colts? And I look back the last few weeks, I'm like, okay, all right. Like, the defense has been competent, not great, but competent. The offense has been just kind of meh. And, the different style of play, that pace, coming down enough to make this a pretty reasonable under 47.5 Saturday night in Indianapolis, our backyard here. Taking us to Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, one of the many games, Jake, that we have a lot of questions about. Again, we're going to talk about every single game on Dub Club. There's a few of them that are doozies. Vikings are technically not out of it. They need, I don't know, 9 miracles to happen, basically. But they're going to play hard. We don't know who's starting at quarterback as of the recording of this show. we have to assume it was Mullins. If you watched Sunday night, they looked competent with him. They looked, not bad with him, but with Hull, I mean, that was just abysmal. The Vikings defense, which had been up until the last few weeks heralded as fantastic, has really been solved as of late. The offense, even with Mullins can turn the ball over, is still got some question marks. It was still a lot of, and we said it at the time, it was a lot of Kirk Cousins being the hero. When Dobbs went there, Dobbs was able to be the hero a time or two, but it's about the quarterback being a hero, really. Otherwise, it's not a great offense. Detroit, we have really no idea what they're going to do. Campbell, for now, is saying they're going to play the starters. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to play the starters. The only way this game matters is if the Cowboys lose and the Eagles lose, which seems impossible for both of those to happen. I guess it could happen. We'll talk about all these games later. They might be doing some scoreboard watching. I have pulled the starters for Detroit down to, we're going to play them a half. We're going to play them a little bit in the second half. But this is a big question mark. If I have Detroit starters in all game, minus 158 is an A-grade play, and we love it. How confident can you be that they're actually going to do that is another question. But even if their starters just play some of the game, minus 158 is a pretty good price to back this Lions team. They're pretty good. They got to be pissed off after last week, which was just, I mean, there's no words. You, viewer, have heard all the words. I have nothing to add to it other than, no, I have nothing to add to it. There you go. And if there's any motivation from that, this Vikings team, credit to them for being whatever they are, 7-9 now, but they're just not a very good team. And that's kind of the bottom line. Lions at home might be their last home game of the season. Wanting to go out on a high note here for their fans before they take to the road. I guess they'll have a home first round game. So I guess they'll have at least one. So either way, always want to put on a show for the fans, especially with the whole first division title in so long. I mean, it seems like a good bounce back spot for Detroit. Last week was a bad spot for them, and they still played really well in a bad spot. And so I like this Lions team. Even if all their backups play, they still got a chance to win. But you have to think the starters are at least going to start, or else Campbell's just really messing with us. And I guess that's a risk we take, right?
Yeah, I don't see Campbell as the guy to float it out there and not do it. I think they play probably a half. I think half is a good judge here, kind of like a second or third, the second preseason game kind of thing.
Yeah. See, it get to halftime, if the Cowboys are up 21, be like, all right.
Yeah. There's somebody that's on that staff that's doing nothing but watching the Cowboys game, and if it's close, they're going to keep them going. But even then, Minnesota is just lost right now. Like it's unfortunate. I mean, 7-9 and is great for when you consider they've lost two quarterbacks, really, kind of between the multiple with Mullins and Mold and Hall and Dobbs, and
you lost Jefferson for whatever 4 weeks, and then he comes back and he's still half hobbled, and I mean you lost him for a good amount.
Yeah, and then they lose Osborne for a minute too,
and well now Hawkinson's out, right?
Yeah, and
I mean
it's just going 7-9. That's props to them. That's I mean, even if it's 7-10 or 8-9, whatever they finish, happy, they got to be happy with it. But I think the backups for Detroit, I think they're going to come out, hit them hard, try to put the game away, because you got to win the game to have a chance to get that 2 seed. So, and I think that's how Campbell's going to treat it. We're going to try to put it away early and then sit back and relax. I don't think Minnesota's got the team or the want to. I mean, as beat up as they are, I don't know that these guys really want to play that extra playoff game.
And it's interesting, and we'll talk much more about this on the extended cut on a team-by-team basis. Some of the teams at this point, look, they're professionals. They want to go out and win. They're playing for jobs. The coach is playing for his job, and they're going to go out and play hard. It's kind of tough the week after you were essentially eliminated to be really motivated. It's no different than you and I as a fan. I feel like personally, right, as an Astros fan, I don't watch a lot of the series after the Astros get eliminated, which thankfully for me, the last 7 years, I've watched every all baseball, or I haven't watched the World Series. When they lose in the LCS, I'm just kind of like, okay, that was fun. I don't really care to watch this. And in this year, that right afterwards, it's hard to bounce back. And as a player, it's got to be even harder. Minnesota that last week, that home game, it was a 50-50 type game according to the betting market. The home crowd was fired up. And then the way that happened, they're professionals, and I'm not trying to say that they're gonna throw this or they aren't, whatever. But you have to imagine you may not get your best effort in practice this week. It may be very tough. They can't even play spoiler. I remember last year this happened with Detroit, and they got to play spoiler. And that was a rallying cry. What do you have to rally around at this point? They don't even know who their quarterback is. It's is Jefferson or some of these guys, are they still kind of hobbled, and does that change anything? Right, and again, we'll talk about some teams with that specific situation as well. I'm with you with Campbell. He seems like a guy who's very much like straightforward, very direct. I mean, even the whole, and I don't want to get into it too much, but the whole 2-point conversion thing, he drew up the play and showed it to the ref at the time. That's a very straightforward guy. He's like, this is what we're going to do. Right. And then they did it. And so it just seems like, he, like you said, he seems like a guy who's going to say, he's going to do what he says and isn't jerking your chain. He's not one of those sneaky guys there are a lot of coaches like that who would say that kind of okie dokie. We'll find out. Maybe he is messing with us, but assuming the starters get a half, like you, I think this hopefully is ugly by the half. And then if the Cowboys are up big, the second string can go in there and just kind of hold their own and cruise us to a victory. Be great pick on Detroit Sunday afternoon. And to the game of the week. Oh, not to the game of the week. I do this all the time. Before we get there, we've got a reminder. If you want to set up on Dub Club, this is the information you get on every single game. It's a little cheat sheet. I don't think I've shown this for football yet. Might have shown it for college football. Been shown it for college basketball. You might have to zoom in on your screen to read all that because it's a lot of information, but you get this for every single game. Ranks, how much what I'm assigning, value to the coordinators. This week is a little wonky because, again, who's playing and whatnot. But this is the sort of stuff that you get if you're with us on Dub Club. Even a weather adjustment. Obviously, this game's in a dome. 0% weather adjustment. A predicted final score, a predicted total, what the A-grade threshold is, etc. So all of that over on Dub Club, which now takes us to the game of the week. Buffalo and Miami. And again, I am not saying these are the two best teams in football. I am saying these are the two best teams, given that the other best teams, Baltimore, San Francisco, are both not playing any of their starters, as best we can tell. And when you take away that, it leaves Miami and Buffalo at 1-2. The Cowboys right behind Buffalo in a near tie. Models like this Miami team really all along. And it's not because their defense obviously isn't very good. It's better than what happened against Baltimore. I mean, this Baltimore team is just built different. And I don't know if they're going to win it all. I'd hesitate to bet that because, you're probably not getting good value on it at this point. But, them making the Super Bowl seems likely. They're so good. This Miami offense is really good, though. I still have it ranked number one again. Caveat with Baltimore and San Francisco not having starters in. Buffalo is a more balanced team, even though they're number 3 again after this week. They're pretty far behind Miami, and that's kind of where this leans us to the Dolphins. This is a classic that we love, a wrong team favorite game, Miami plus 140. We tried Miami at plus odds against Baltimore. It did not work well at all. But as we always say, the confidence in the A grades never comes in one single game. It always comes in the totality of games, which is why we talked about having a 20% ROI on the A grades. In any one individual game, I have no more confidence than anything because I don't know what's going to happen in one game. But overall, these are the types of picks that have won us way more times than not. And if Miami's anywhere near 62%, that's probably a little bit high. But even if it's upper mid 50% at plus 140s, this is a no-brainer. I don't know who wins, but plus 140 for the home team. I know the Bills are really good. They're really balanced. I like this Buffalo team. I would like to see them in the playoffs because I want to see the best teams in the playoffs. It makes it more fun to watch. But I'm not sure they can go on the road and get the win. Plus 140 is too good to pass subject. What do you got?
Yeah, to me, this is priced like it's being played in Buffalo and that Miami's got something locked up in the city. I mean, this is for the division, right? Like this is the home field at least one home field game, Miami's going to be highly motivated to go out there, especially after getting their butts handed to them the way it happened in Baltimore.
Yeah.
But so I don't really understand this price. I'm so excited to jump on Miami with plus odds because I don't think Buffalo's defense is better than Miami's, and it's pretty decent, but I don't think they're going to be able to stand up to the offense at home at Miami. And I don't know if what's going on with this Buffalo offense, but it doesn't seem to be clicking as well. It's like Diggs isn't going that well. Cook had a bad game. They're not able to run the ball. It's all Josh Allen, and he's a great quarterback and he's doing so much for his team. But I don't think he's got enough steam to get past Miami because I know Miami's defense took a big loss with Chubb going down, which I'm confused why he was still playing at that time, but that's beside the point. I really don't think Buffalo's got the team to go to Miami and win this. If this was in Buffalo at this time of year, this line would make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Right now it doesn't in Miami.
Yeah, I think Buffalo's just like the sexy team everyone's talking about, and we kind of laid out this scenario a few weeks ago with, hey, Buffalo's not dead if they win and Miami loses, and like we kind of knew Buffalo had an easier schedule to kind of bridge the gap, and it's like they've got all the momentum or whatever. Like momentum, in sports doesn't mean anything, and that's the hard thing for people to understand. It might be real, but it's valueless, and I can tell you it's valueless because one play, all of a sudden the other team has the momentum. Well, if it's that easy to switch around, it doesn't really have a lot of value, right? And that's what we're talking about here. What's going to matter is what happens on the field, and what Buffalo has done in the last few weeks or whatever. It isn't overly relevant. And even then, they haven't looked that great against weaker competition in these last couple of weeks. And so, I give them a pass for that. I know they were looking ahead. That's why I like the Patriots getting 14.5 last week, which earlier in the week when we recorded, it was only 13. And that's when I was like, I kind of like that, but wasn't really sold. And then, people kept betting on Buffalo, and that didn't work out very well. Obviously, betting on Miami didn't work out very well last week, but it's just a good reminder. You're never as bad as you look at your worst. And that was about as bad as Miami can possibly look, right? They played much better against a good Cowboys team, a Cowboys team that I think is pretty comparable to Buffalo, in terms of overall talent. Again, they're pretty similarly ranked according to Sideline. And that was a tight contest. And I just don't quite get why we're getting plus 140 on this. I'm like you, it's almost like it's priced in Buffalo. The winner of this game is locked into the 2 seed. So it's not just one home game. It's 2 home games. Absolutely huge for Buffalo. It could mean missing the playoffs. Interestingly enough, we will know that ahead of time. A lot of times on these, they put the standalone game as the one that it just determines seeding or it determines in or out, like for both teams or whatever. But this was obviously the interesting game that everybody wanted to watch. It's why, it got NBC's getting it. But Buffalo could miss the playoffs if the right things happen and they lose. If the wrong things happen, both teams will be in, and then it will just be for the division. But either way, they're absolutely going to be trying. Both teams trying their hardest. There's no reason not to. The last thing I want to say about this team.
Two very interesting home field advantages too.
Oh yeah,
very hot as Miami is, and
not the way not January, but
but still, it's a lot warmer than 70% of the other places.
Yeah, I think it's less that it's hot there and more about they just don't have to play in the cold, right? It's like they get to play their style of football and not this cold weather thing. And obviously, Buffalo can be miserable at this time of year, and it could be a real doozy of a game. The last thing I want to say about this game, I don't want to try to predict trick plays, gadget plays. But look, if we have to guess which side's going to come up with that in this type of game with the weapons they have, you got to think it's Miami, right? You got to think with that coach and the weapons he has, having a full week to be like, okay, what can I scheme up to try to get advantages and do some trickeration and use my speed in different ways. Miami's a little bit banged up at the skill position too, but they have a lot of depth still. Mostert will be questionable, but Achane's obviously been really, really good, and he's insanely fast. Obviously Hill, Waddle, etc. You have to think that might be an extra little added thing that Miami might have the opportunity to provide a little more wrinkles than Buffalo, who's just more of a balanced team. And in the one game scenario, I want all those fun wrinkles like that with Miami. So it gives us maybe a little bit extra boost. So plus 140 on Miami. A-grade pick. Again, there's your recap. We're going to take a 60-second break. You can join us for the extended cut over on Dub Club, where we're going to talk about every single game. Again, that sign-up link, as always, is in the show description. We'd love to have you over there. And if you are, then stick around after this 60 seconds, and we will continue to talk about football. But before we do, Jake, final words for our last regular season free picks NFL show before we take that pause.
Look, I think this is a great 3-game sample. We got a total, we got a favorite, and we got a dog. I mean, this is exactly what kind of like we want, and how it's been going so well for us.
Exactly, and there is more to come. Again, if you're with us in Dub Club, exclusive link over there. So stick around. After 60 seconds, you'll get more football talk. And if you're not with us there, again, you can sign up in the link in the show description to get more NFL picks.